How's it going, everybody? Uh, Another day in Lent. Welcome again to Remember Me Daily Readings for Lent. And I will start off by reading today's reading, Monday, after the second Sunday in Lent. Here we go. When you think about making money, you do not for a moment consider those poorer than yourself. You aspire to level yourself with those richer. It is only in religious matters that you show a tendency to modesty and self-effacement. It is only there that you meekly quote your inferiors. Why do you not rather imitate Zacchaeus, who gave half of his goods to the poor? One is reduced to wishing that the Christians of the present day would imitate the Pharisees, who gave the tenth of what they possessed. Jesus Christ has a kingdom. He has taxes, domains, treasures, a treasury in heaven. That treasury is the purse of the poor, the common purse such as he had on earth with his disciples. Levy a tax on yourselves, a settled tax upon your annual income you receive from your possessions or your earnings. Be your own customs officer. Now, will you make it a tenth? I hope so, even though that's not much, since that is what the Pharisees gave. And if your justice does not exceed that of the Pharisees, you will not enter into the kingdom of heaven. This was by St. Augustine. So this stuff was talked about even in his time. Let me end the reading. The poor hold out their hands, but God receives what is given to them. So this one is a little personal. Anyway, just to add, St. Augustine is talking about this. So this was an issue even in his day. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the stuff that I want to highlight. When you think about making money, you do not for a moment consider those poorer than yourself. You aspire to level yourselves with those richer. It is only in religious matters that you show a tendency to modesty and self-effacement. So that's actually pretty true. A lot of people do want to consider themselves, want to go after the money, want to go after the bag, as some of them say. And a lot of Catholics too are they're too worried about how much money they're making, right? And again, we talked about it in another episode. There is nothing wrong with obtaining wealth. However, it shouldn't be the focal point of what you're doing. So let's continue. One is reduced to wishing that the Christians of present day would imitate the Pharisees, who gave a tenth of what they possessed. A lot of Catholics today don't even give the 10%. And it's not even, this is like Pharisaical level. That's what St. Augustine says. The 10% is a minimum. Should we be giving more? I think we should. And I'm saying this even as somebody who doesn't give more than he should. I honestly don't think I give 10%. I don't think I do. So I have to do it myself. This is quite frankly criticism of myself primarily. So it's a conversation that I'm having with you, but it's actually one that I'm having basically to myself. What can we do for how can we help the church, right? We can help the church in many ways. We can help it by donating our time, but the best time today is to give money. And are we giving money to the churches that we go to? That's a real question. I've seen, or I've noticed in, quite frankly, like traditional parishes that they don't really give as much as they should. Sometimes I'm nosy. Might be a sin to be nosy, but sometimes I look in the basket. I see a bunch of fives, a bunch of ones, and especially since this page is dedicated to the traditional side, a more traditional side of Catholicism, there aren't a lot of churches that offer the traditional Mass. It's a rare sight to see. So when you're part of a traditional Latin Mass community, please make sure to offer more than the $5. The $5, the $1. I've seen people give like 82 cents, right? I hear the change fly. It sounds like 82 cents, but we have to give more than that. We have to give more because there aren't a lot of traditional parishes. And if you want to keep the lights on, keep in mind a lot of these churches, your traditional parishes, like they're in bad neighborhoods. They're shabby buildings, right? They're not that, well kept up. And what we can do is give more money, donate more, right? This ultimately means that we're going to personally have less. And I'm even talking to myself, we're going to have less to spend for stuff that we want, but we need to help God first. And it's something that I think everyone can improve in, right? And again, I'm not talking just to you, I'm talking to me as well, right? God has gifted us. If you have a well paying job, which I feel to the most part that I do, I should be doing more and I should be giving back primarily to God. I know people give back to the community, give back, give it to God. God knows what to do with it better than we do. But yeah, just to highlight, sorry about that, just to highlight what it said. Jesus Christ has a kingdom, he has taxes, he has domains, he has treasures, a treasury in heaven, right? God's kingdom needs funds to function, right? God's kingdom on earth. I mean, right? The church militant, we need funds. We need funds to do what we have to keep the lights on to our traditional masses, right? We have to keep the lights on. And the stuff costs money, unfortunately. It's something that makes us uncomfortable, but we do need to start putting more in the basket and stop worrying so much about ourselves. Try to write. I remember a criticism that people had, like, especially, in Latin America. They're like, oh, everybody's living in poverty, but the church is nice. That's a wake up call to people. That's how things are supposed to be, right? The church, if the nicest building in town is the church, then typically, right? I'm not saying that's what it is today, but that's a good sign. That's a good sign that, people are giving what they can to the church. And that's, like I said, that's a great sign, and that's not something to be angry about, right? We should give we should put God precedence over ourselves. This means that we might have to give, right, the disposable income that we have to God, but that's the best thing that we can do, because keep in mind, you're not going to take your wealth with you, right? And um, yeah, levy a tax on yourself, right? I'm looking at my notes. Levy a tax on yourselves. Now, I want to go over something that a lot of people, or a lot of, I've heard some Catholics unfortunately use. They adopt this principle of, I forgot what it's called in Protestantism. It's like, oh, where you give money, and then if you donate the amount of money that you give, God's gonna pay it back tenfold. That's not the reason why you should be giving, making these kinds of alms, giving these kinds of alms to God. You don't give, right? You don't give $10 to be, oh well, if I give $10 to God, He's gonna give me 100 back. You don't do that, especially with God, right? God allowed you to have the $10 in the first place, the 10 extra dollars in the first place, right? He gave you health, He gave you a mind, He gave you, yeah, your body, He gave you your abilities. Okay, so you shouldn't be investing in your church. You shouldn't be investing in God, saying, "Oh yeah, if I donate $10, I'm gonna get 100 back." Whatever these people do, I forgot what it's called, but I'm happy that I forgot, because it's something not worth knowing anyway. Like the name, it's not worth the time. But yeah, there's a lot, and Catholics have adopted that kind of stuff. Some of them, like, don't you know, if you give to God, He will repay you, and which, God appreciates that stuff. God will give you graces. God will help you. But yeah, to say, I'm gonna give $10 so I can get my money back, that's not what you're supposed to do. That's the wrong kind of way. And God's not a money multiplier, right? As Catholics, we have to understand, we have to pick, we have to choose poverty first, right? You have to choose it. And I'm not saying like go sell all your stuff and live in a box or anything like that, but you know, we shouldn't have this disordered view of the world. Like we need to, we need to make the bag, we need to make bank, we need to do it. That's disordered. That's disordered. Okay, and it's wrong. It's wrong, and if it makes you uncomfortable, that's seeking glory, like vainglory. That's seeking glory amongst men to do that, right? And I know, people can say, "Oh, you're just saying this because you're not successful. You're saying this because you're broke yourself." And I'll say, "Hey, it might be true that I am, but you shouldn't be spending your time, your free time or whatever. Like you shouldn't be elevating the love of money, right? You shouldn't be elevating the money to God." And it's like, when people are like, well, some of these critics or somebody that might be against what I'm saying right now might be shaking their head. You might be shaking your head, but it's like, hey, if you're making all that money and you're not using that money for God's glory, at least you're not increasing. Because more than likely, right, if you are right, you're making bank and all that, and you still put, I'm going to put $20 in here, right? If you're still doing that, then yeah, like, sure, fine, get your bag. If it's going to increase how much you're putting in the collection basket on Sundays, by all means, right? If you can afford more than the 10%, please do more. I know you're not doing that. I know you're not doing that. Most of these people are not doing that. So you can shake your head all you want if you disagree. You can shake your head all you want, but I know you're not doing that, right? And that's the problem. It goes back to what we're going about the rich men going into heaven, right? If you have disposable income, and this is a general term, not just for the people who I'm calling out or anything like that, but right, if you have disposable income, and it is possible to give more to God, you should give more to God. You might have to go over your finances and cut out stuff that you don't really need. But if it's possible, do it. And it's something that even I'm gonna think about doing after I'm done with this video. I personally felt called out on. Like St. Augustine is calling me a Pharisee. Oh man, and it's true, right? Like me, like I don't, I feel like I donate more than the average person, but I don't do what I'm supposed to be doing, right? I'm comparing myself. Well, compared to everybody else, I'm doing better. But it's like, yeah, but I mean, you're basically like you're the best. You're the best loser. You're the best guy. Like out of the sinner, you're the best of them, right? Well, I'm the best sinner. Not that I'm calling these people sinners, because I'm not. But it's kind of like that. You're the best sinner. Like I'm the best sinner here. But it's like, but you're still a sinner. You're still a sinner. But anyway, yeah. Yeah, today's Catholics don't even give that. The least amount is a tenth, even though it's amount that the Pharisees would give. And that's usually what priests say, give 10% when they talk to you, when they have. I remember last time we had a sermon on this, and yeah, that's what the priest said, 10%, right? That's the bare minimum. That's the bare. Should we be doing the bare minimum? No. Are we doing the bare minimum? Not even that. Most Catholics are not doing it. Am I doing the bare minimum? No, I don't think I am. Have to increase it. And I got an idea of how much I'm supposed to give, and I'm not doing that. But I'll have to look through it. But yeah, like, am I giving the bare minimum? No. Are you giving the bare minimum? If it's no, sit down and go through what you have. Now, I know there's families, right? There's families that are barely making it through. I'm not talking to you if you're one of those families, right? If you literally can't, I can't make, we're making barely keeping up, right? We can't make any more cuts. Fine. There's a lot of people, even people who fancy themselves Catholics, get the bag, bro. Do that. People who want you to get, who focus a little too much, I feel, a little too much on being successful in the worldly sense. There's nothing wrong with worldly success, obviously, if it helps God. But there's nothing wrong with that. But most of the time it's disordered. And most of the time that money, there's no increase in money into the church, right? They're so interested in making the bag that they even shortchange God. Don't shortchange God, right? And that's a lesson even to me. I can see myself on the video. I'm like looking at myself like straight. Don't shortchange God. Don't shortchange God. We shouldn't shortchange God. There's, you know, and I understand there's some things that make you uncomfortable, like some things in the church that make you uncomfortable. But at the very end, like usually, your parish, most of the money stays there. And it's to help mainly for the parish to keep the lights on, have the sacraments, do all that stuff. Donate as much as you can, give as much as you can, not because you expect God to pay you back, because you shouldn't do that. It's because it's the right thing to do. If you love God, if you love His church, you should donate, and you should make sure to keep the lights on at the very least, because the traditional sacraments, right, the traditional mass, all these, right, these priests, they need you. They need you, and you're part of the movement too. You're part of, just because you can't offer mass doesn't mean that you're not part of the team, doesn't mean that you're not an important part of this project. It's this whole thing. You're part of it too. Donate to your church. Anyway, this was shorter than the usual one. Hope you guys are doing well with your Lenten fast. Please pray for me. I'll be praying for you. Until next time, God bless and take care.